An afternoon that never returned. The story of the last time Genette was seen. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like to support, share for your friends to explore, and subscribe to Tootie Mystery so you don't miss any mysteries that are about to be revealed. A village that seemed absolutely safe. Aylesbury. The name sounds like a gentle old song that echoes in the middle of Western England. Nestled in the peaceful Devon countryside, this small village with a few hundred residents was once likened to a place where nothing happened except the church bells and the morning cock crowing. No one expected that this place would be the center of one of the most mysterious disappearances in modern British history. On a summer afternoon in 1978, it was not raining. The sun was gently shining on the winding village roads. The old trees rustled in the gentle wind. People were busy with their farm work. Children were playing football on the grass behind the school. Aylesbury was so peaceful that you could hear the disappearance approaching, but no one paid any attention. Genette, a normal girl, on an unusual afternoon. Genette Tate was 13 years old, a high school student, living with her stepfather and mother in Aylesbury. She was described by friends as kind, energetic, loved cycling, and had a smile as bright as the sun through the window. On August 19, 1978, around 3 p.m., Genette was assigned to deliver newspapers, a part-time job she often took on weekends. On her green Raleigh bicycle, Genette carried a stack of newspapers and pedaled along the narrow, tree-lined village of Whitton Lane. The strangeness began there, and it began with an absence. The final minutes, an uneasy silence. At around 3:30 p.m., two of Genette's friends, also classmates, were walking along the route she had just cycled. As they approached the bend in Whitton Lane, they noticed something unusual. Genette's bike was abandoned in the middle of the road, newspapers scattered around, and she was nowhere to be seen. Everything seemed frozen. There were no screams, no screeches, no signs of struggle. There was just an eerie void, as if time had swallowed Genette up without any explanation. The two girls panicked and ran to tell the adults. And from that moment on, the village of Aylesbury was never the same again. The first traces, the scattered pieces of a bizarre scenario. Devon and Cornwall police quickly got involved. They set up a checkpoint, cordoned off the area, and deployed sniffer dogs and helicopters. Since the next morning, more than 60 police officers and hundreds of local residents have spread out across fields, bushes, streams, barns, and barns. But nothing. Genette Tate has seemingly disappeared from the real world. Some important details recorded at the scene. The bicycle was not overturned, not damaged, just resting on its side on the road, as if Genette had just gotten off it seconds before. 9 undelivered newspapers were still on the handlebars, evidence that she was still in the middle of her journey. There are no traces of dragging, blood, or dropped personal belongings. No cries for help. No one heard anything. Had she been kidnapped? Or had Genette herself run away from something? Why was everything so clean? The first theory, she ran away. In the first hours, the police did not rule out the possibility that Genette had run away from home. But this was quickly dismissed. She had no money, no belongings, no signs of discontent or family conflict. In fact, in her diary, she had written down plans to go out with friends the next day, an unthinkable act for anyone planning to escape. As time passed, the silence became more and more terrifying. No ransom call, no claim of responsibility, no body, and no evidence to conclude that she was dead. The only thing left was a haunted village, a broken family, and a nation watching this bizarre story as if it were a modern-day legend. An unusual disappearance or a perfect kidnapping. There were many cases of missing children in England during that period, but Genette Tate was the only case that left no clues. Experts quickly dubbed it the case of absolute silence. Another strange thing, at the time of Genette's disappearance, no strangers were seen in the area. No suspicious cars. No strangers asking for directions. No strange behavior was recorded. Nothing. In other words, the absence of data became the biggest data. If Genette was kidnapped, then the person had planned it extremely carefully, picked the right moment when no one was watching, and then left like a ghost. Unanswered questions, the beginning of 40 years of torment. Where did Genette go after that last moment? Where did Genette go after that last moment? Who could commit a disappearance in broad daylight in a small village without leaving a trace? If this was a murder, why was the body not found after decades? If this was a kidnapping, would Genette still be alive? From a moment the bicycle was discovered, time seemed to bend in Whitton Lane. Every leaf that fell, every strange noise that followed was remembered and haunted by the people. The police filed records, storing clues like pieces of a puzzle, missing the original box. And for the next 4 decades, no one could finish the story that Genette left unfinished that afternoon. What do you think about this topic? Comment to discuss together. The mysterious investigation, from erased traces to spreading fear. An investigation that started in despair. When the first footsteps of the police were imprinted on Whitton Lane, everything was too late. There was no body, no suspects, no cries for help had ever been heard. The official investigation into the disappearance of Genette Tate began as if people had been tasked with assembling a giant picture that no one knew what it depicted, and more importantly, that was missing all the central pieces. Detective George Vinicum, the original leader of the investigation, once described, it was as if the countryside had swallowed her whole. We had no starting point, only a bicycle and silence. The desperate efforts. The more you search, the more confused. After the first 24 hours, the case was officially classified as a missing child with a high probability of abduction, triggering a massive manhunt. Devon and Cornwall police organized a house-to-house search within an 8 kilometers radius of where the bike was found. A list of all vehicles that had passed through the area during the suspected hours, interviewing all residents of Aylesbury and the surrounding areas. However, all led to a terrifying blind spot. No one had seen anything. No one had heard anything. No one knew anything. Every path seemed to be covered with an invisible fog. The few clues, like someone remembering seeing a strange car a few days ago, or a fisherman hearing the sound of a bicycle in the afternoon, all led to dead ends. Initial theories, glimmer of hope, then fade. Crossmark Theory 1, accident. Some people think that Genette may have had an accident, fallen into a ravine, or gotten stuck in a dense forest. But after weeks of searching with dogs, hunters, villagers, helicopters, no biological traces were found. No blood, no clothes, no skid marks or disturbed soil. Crossmark Theory 2, voluntary escape. As mentioned in the previous chapter, Genette took nothing with her except her bicycle and newspaper. Family and friends confirmed that she had no conflicts, no sadness, no signs of preparing to leave. Everything she left behind, from her diary, letters, daily routine, suggested a completely normal girl with no reason to disappear. Crossmark Theory 3, abduction by a stranger. This is the strongest theory, but also the darkest trap. If it was a kidnapping, how? In the space of just a few minutes in broad daylight, without a sound? How could a stranger have done it so perfectly without leaving a trace? We began to wonder, was this really a routine kidnapping? The lost evidence, cracks in the investigative files. Unfortunately, many of the original documents from the initial investigation were not fully preserved, as the local police were not equipped with modern digital systems in 1978. Some of the initial reports were not recorded in hard copy, or existed only as oral memos. Some sources have hinted that at least 2 potential witnesses were not interviewed in time. Their information was lost in the chaos of the first day. Decades later, during a reinvestigation, a former policeman confessed, "If we had acted more quickly in the first 24 hours, we might have had a chance." Fear spread. Aylesbury was no longer peaceful. Overnight, Aylesbury had gone from a peaceful village to a place haunted by invisible fear. Children were no longer allowed to go to school alone. People who had opened their doors to visitors for tea began to lock their doors every afternoon. Rumors spread throughout Devon. A kidnapper was lurking among the trees, or even in the small community itself. A question kept repeating itself in everyone's mind. If Genette had been kidnapped without anyone knowing, could he be living among us? No one dared to answer. What details were left out? Years later, In case reviews, experts question small details that may have been overlooked in the original investigation. Another mailman claimed to have seen a strange man in a leather jacket walking along a country road a week before the disappearance, but no one found him. A witness said a white van had been parked near the road where Genette disappeared, but it was not recorded in the official report. A local resident said he had seen a young girl walking along a stream near the woods, but no one had verified the information in time. With the most important pieces of the puzzle lost amid seemingly insignificant details, a case that grew colder over time. After 3 weeks, the search was narrowed. After 3 months, the case was moved to unknown. Investigation continued. By the end of 1978, Genette Tate's file of suspects, testimonies, and forgotten signs. When suspicions begin to take shape, time passes, but the haunting does not. While the public gradually forgets the name of Genette Tate, the police are still quietly scouring the files, not only to find the girl, but also to find anyone who might be a link in this strange disappearance. But the scary thing is, there are no clear suspects. The case did not start with a robbery. It did not end with a body. The case just begins and then disappears as if it never happened. However, there are still names mentioned. Shadows appearing and disappearing in the woods on the country road. And each name contains a strange and chilling story. The Leather Jacket Man, a nameless shadow. Within a week of the disappearance, at least 2 Aylesbury residents reported seeing a strange man hanging around the area where Genette was believed to have disappeared. Distinctive details. He wore a long leather jacket, military boots, and kept his head down. One person described him as behaving strangely, standing for hours on the side of the road, not speaking to anyone. Despite attempts to reconstruct a portrait, however, police were unable to identify him. They nicknamed him the Leather Man, and the figure gradually disappeared from official records. But the question remained, was he a passerby, or had he been watching the 13-year-old girl all along? The white van no one confirms. Another witness, an old man who lived just 300 meters from the disappearance, said he saw a white pickup truck parked near the edge of the woods that afternoon. No company logo, no clear license plate. The strange thing, the vehicle was parked for about 15 minutes, then left very quickly, just minutes before Genette disappeared. When the police checked the vehicle register, no one in the area reported driving the truck at that time. All traces, driver or vehicle, evaporated. Could it be Genette was dragged into the back of the truck in broad daylight, in a moment when no one was looking? Forgotten witnesses? In hundreds of statements, there are at least 5 testimonies that someone heard a loud scream, like a child's voice, at around 3:45 p.m. that day, the exact time in question. However, no one ran out into the street at that time. Police thought it might have been the sound of children playing near the farm. But later, when reviewing the records, there was a chilling detail. No group of children had disappeared near Genette that day. So, where did the screams come from? An unpublished interview, the anonymous suspect. A source once revealed to the press that in 1980, police secretly interviewed a man who lived alone on the edge of Aylesbury Forest. He lived in a makeshift hut with no electricity or running water. He had a history of mild mental illness. He had been accused of stalking children in a nearby village. However, there was no concrete evidence, and he left Devon just 2 weeks after the interview. The relevant records were never released, and his identity remains shrouded in secrecy to this day. Were the police so close to the truth and then let it go? A name that has resurfaced after decades, Robert Black. In the early 2000s, the disappearance of Genette Tate was reinvestigated and linked to a notorious name in British crime history. Robert Black, convicted of murdering and sexually abusing several young girls between 1981 and 1986. The chilling thing is, Black worked as a cross-country delivery driver in the 1970s. He was recorded in the southwest of England in the summer of 1978. His abduction pattern was identical to that of Genette Tate, targeting teenage girls in broad daylight on country lanes. However, there was no physical evidence linking him to Genette. In 2016, Robert Black died in prison, taking with him secrets that may never be solved. The list of suspects is long, but too quiet. Over the past 40 years, more than 60 suspects have been placed under preliminary investigation. But one by one, the names have failed to be charged. They have come and gone like shadows passing through the mirror of time. So what really happened on August 19th, 1978? A wandering stranger who acted perfectly? A familiar local who knew the time Genette was delivering newspapers? A witness who saw, but out of fear, remained silent forever? No one knows. Or if anyone knows, they have never spoken. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Instinct that can't be ignored. Family, psychics, and paranormal signs. The father who won't let go. John Tate, Genette's father, never believed that his daughter had simply disappeared. He refused to accept silence or an inconclusive case as an answer. I feel like she's still out there, waiting for me. From the very beginning, John said he had strange dreams. One of them, he saw Genette standing in a foggy field, waving her arms but not making a sound. Every time he approached, she would retreat further and then disappear into the white mist. These dreams repeated over the years, and strangely, always in August, the month she went missing. Seances in the dark. In the early 1980s, after 5 years of fruitless searching, the Tate family quietly invited a psychic from London, a then famous Marion Kent, known for her ability to communicate with the energies of the dead. Marion arrived in the village of Aylesbury one early autumn evening, carrying a piece of the dress Genette had worn. I felt a movement, a quick movement, then a gap. She was pulled out of time, she said. As she placed her hand on a map of the area, a candle went out despite the lack of wind, and Marion exclaimed, "It's not the fault of a stranger. Someone who knows the way chose the right time, the right place." That statement shook the family. Could the killer be someone in the community? Strange signals from sleep. Genette's stepmother, Violet Tate, once recorded an experience that she kept secret for more than a decade. In 1985, she had a daydream when she found herself standing in an old, musty-smelling wooden house, hearing small footsteps running in the attic, and a voice in her head saying, "Can you hear me?" She woke up with a start, her heart pounding, and the clock on the wall in the house had just stopped. Exactly 15:28, the exact time Genette was said to have disappeared 7 years earlier. No one could explain it, but Violet said, "Since that day, I have believed that a part of Genette's spirit is still around." A U.S. psychic and a strange map. In 1996, a U.S. nonprofit organization dedicated to finding missing children sent Devon police a special dossier, including psychic analysis from psychic Thomas A. Redfield, who had assisted in more than 40 previous cases. Based on photographs and preliminary information, Redfield marked 3 areas near the Newton Poppleford Woods, about 5 kilometers from where Genette disappeared. He wrote, "She was taken off the road, not killed immediately. There was a sense of being held, of being briefly imprisoned. The energy finally dissipated in the water." Police secretly visited all 3 sites, but found nothing unusual. However, a year later, a forester found animal bones thrown together with scraps of fabric resembling a woman's sweater near the 3rd coordinates. Subsequent analysis was insufficient to confirm human identification, and the case was again silenced. Magnetic fields and strange signal loss. A 2004 civil investigation team, comprising a metaphysical researcher and an electromagnetic engineer, surveyed the area near where Genette's bicycle was left. They discovered a phenomenon that is hard to explain. Radio and phone signals were completely lost within an 80 m radius, although there was no geological reason. A magnetometer fluctuated abnormally, as if there were magnetic bubbles around the area. One member said, "It was as if something was still there where she disappeared, an energy gap that had not been closed." Although considered an unreliable peripheral phenomenon, it continued to add a strange haunting to the already mysterious case. The shadows that return every August. Over the past 20 years, many Aylesbury residents have reported seeing inexplicable things around August 19th. A small white figure running across a path, then disappearing. An old bicycle parked in the middle of the road, then gone. A papa sound in the empty fields. Every time the police checked, nothing was found. But the stories were repeated year after year. And always at the same time, August, sunset. It could be collective imagination. It could be nostalgia. Or it could be a cry for help from the other side. Did the police waver? Although never officially admitted, a former investigator shared in an anonymous interview. I used to believe in evidence and reason. But the Genette case made me question it, because there are things that simply cannot be explained. Each of your shares is my motivation to continue 40 years without giving up, the last efforts and legacy of a missing girl. Despite the passage of time, the family still keeps hoping. The years have passed, and with each 5-year, 10-year, 20-year milestone, the British press mentions Genette Tate again. But unlike many missing cases that have been forgotten over time, the name of that 13-year-old girl still lingers in the media, on bulletin boards, and in the hearts of the people. John Tate, the now elderly father, once said on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of Genette's disappearance, "Every morning when I wake up, I still think of her first. I don't care if anyone remembers. I remember. That undying affection has made the family continue to contact the police whenever there is new news and not give up on any clue, no matter how fragile." The case reinvestigated in the age of DNA. As technology advanced, British police began to revisit unsolved cases with modern DNA technology. In 2008, the Genette Tate case file was reactivated. Old evidence, bicycles, fibers, even folded maps, were re-examined using new biometric techniques. DNA samples from previous suspects, including Robert Black, a suspected serial killer, were recompared with modern data. The result? No suspicious DNA traces were found on the evidence. The case continued to hit a dead end, but at least all possibilities were once again turned over, analyzed in the light of science. Lost opportunity, Robert Black in time. Robert Black, who abducted and murdered several girls between 1981 and 1986, passed through Devon in the 1970s. Although he was not charged in the Genette case, many investigators believe, if the evidence points to him, it is the closest thing to the truth. The problem? Robert Black died in prison in 2016 before he could be questioned one last time about Genette. Police had hoped to persuade him to talk in his final years, but time was not on their side. A chance, perhaps the only one, gone forever. National campaign, Where is Genette? In 2012, exactly 34 years after his disappearance, a crowdsourced campaign called #WhereIsGenette went viral across the UK. People shared photos of Genette's face, reconstructed as she aged. Thousands of people wrote articles, lit candles, and even remapped her movements on August 19, 1978, from a new perspective. Although nothing groundbreaking was discovered, the campaign brought Genette back into the minds of a whole new generation and inspired hundreds of other missing persons reinvestigations. A memorial without a name, but not forgotten. In the village of Aylesbury, a wooden bench sits in the middle of the village road, with no inscription, no missing person's name, no plaque. But everyone in the village knows it is a place for Genette. Every August 19th, someone quietly places a white rose on it. No one takes responsibility. No one needs to, because for Aylesbury, the little girl never really left. Legacy, the girl who changed Britain. Genette Tate has become one of the most powerful symbols of unsolved cases in Britain. Her case has changed the way children are approached, led to the creation of a number of organizations to support families, and paved the way for major changes in the long-term storage of evidence to facilitate reinvestigations. Genette never came back, but she left behind something immortal, a big question mark that society cannot let go of. The final question: if Genette were still alive, would she remember that day? If she had been murdered, did anyone see anything but kept silent for decades? Or perhaps the truth lies somewhere only time can reach? Genette Tate, whose bicycle was found abandoned in the middle of a country lane in 1978, will forever be one of the most mysterious disappearances in British history. A girl without an enemy, a case without a body, a pain without an end.